Some educators in the state are claiming a win as part of Governor Reynolds' education law is now on hold, but another embattled section of the act still stands. So here's what you need to know. A federal judge filed an injunction on the law in response to a request from the plaintiffs of two separate lawsuits against Reynolds in the state. Part of the law requiring educators to report a student changing their name or pronouns to their guardians is still in effect right now, but restrictions on books and classroom instructions on gender identity and sexual orientation cannot be enforced. Local 5 spoke to some of the plaintiffs a part of one of the lawsuits today. They believe the education law takes away constitutional rights from students. Some educators have refused to remove certain books from their shelves for months. One of the plaintiffs says they hope the injunction will send a message to the state as they head into a new legislative session.
When it comes to our state house, Governor Reynolds and Republican legislature, we have a constitution. You cannot target the LGBTQ community. And I hope that message is loud and clear.
It's important to reiterate part of this law is still in effect while other portions of the law are on pause, so it's a partial block. Since this decision dropped, Connor, you have spent today digging into the injunction details itself. What can you tell us about the judge's decision?
Yeah, Larissa, District Judge Stephen H. Loker said all plaintiffs had standing to challenge book restrictions, but none for the parental rights provisions. So here's what all this means. District Judge Stephen H. Loker fulfilled his promise to issue a decision by January 1st on injunction requests against Iowa's state education law. So why did the court issue a temporary pause on part of the sweeping education law? Well, Drake University law professor Sally Frank said part of the statute is vague.
One of the big problems with this bill and why they're able to take it to federal court is because these are not content neutral regulations.
Judge Loker said the state's law regarding instruction about gender identity and sexual orientation to students in grade 6 and below made no distinction between gender identities or gay or straight relationships, making this portion of the state law widely overbroad. So for that reason, the court placed a temporary pause on restricting programs or instruction relating to gender identity and sexual orientation for any grade. For the section of the education law focused on requiring educators to report a student changing their name or pronouns to their guardians, Judge Loker denied the injunction request because he said the student plaintiffs in the case were already out and would not be affected by this requirement. So that part of the law remains in effect. So what happens next with this law? Well, legal experts expect the state to appeal the court's decision from Friday.
It doesn't take a lot to appeal. It's a notice of appeal, and then you get to work on your papers. So I expect them to appeal fairly quickly. How quickly the 8th Circuit would rule is another question.
And you heard that word appeal, right? Well, the state hasn't done so yet, but like Professor Frank just mentioned, if the state were to do so, they'd have to wait until Tuesday at the earliest to file in the United States Court of Appeals for the 8th Circuit, which covers Iowa and 6 other Midwestern states. Larissa?
Connor, thank you. And the Iowa State Education Association released a statement in response to the injunction. They said in part, quote, "This is a big win for education professionals, students, and parents. This ruling means they can continue successfully guiding all students without fear of punishment or losing their jobs." The Iowa branch of the ACLU also responded to the temporary injunction. Tonight, a senior attorney for Lambada Legal said in part, quote, "This decision sends a strong message to the state that efforts to ban books based on LGBTQ+ content or target speech that sends a message of inclusion to Iowa's LGBTQ+ students cannot stand." They went on to say they will continue to fight to ensure Iowa schools are safe for LGBTQ+ students. Governor Reynolds also weighed in on the decision tonight. She said in part, quote, "I'm extremely disappointed in today's ruling. Instruction on gender identity and sexual orientation has no place in kindergarten through 6th grade classrooms." Now there's a lot to unpack on this complicated topic. For more stories on how we got to this injunction today and to find the documents laying out this ruling, head to weareiowa.com.